show that the product works, get some users on board, get really strong metrics before you approach them, because actually a lot of these companies get pitched a lot. I'm Shib, so I'm co-founder slash CEO of Unrd. We're an interactive storytelling platform.
And I'm Adam, co-founder and chief creative officer of Unrd.
Perfect. So how did you see a need for this product, and how did it all start?
Yeah, I can take that one. So I guess what we were exploring was this intersection between linear entertainment and gaming, and didn't really feel anyone had done a really great job of delivering the emotion that you normally feel when you watch a movie or TV into an interactive environment. So most things that you do on mobile that are interactive are very level-based. They're very functional. You never really tell anyone that you just completed a level on a mobile game. It's not something you shout out the trees with. So we wanted to create that cross-section of immersive linear entertainment combined with games. That's what we're building now at Unrd.
Perfect. And just for those that are a little less aware of who you are, do you want to give just a bit of background as to the product itself?
Yeah, sure. So how Unrd works is we give you access to your favorite character's phone, effectively. So that might be someone on death row, it might be a girl who's gone missing. They're all fictional characters, and you have access to their phones. You can read their messages, hear their calls, read their emails, see their photo galleries, and we tell a story through that mechanic. So a story evolves through their phone effectively, and you follow along as a voyeur slash user and see how that rolls out.
And it seems to only take a quick Google to see that people really do get emotionally involved in this. I've seen people going through the various levels or whatever it may be, really trying to predict what's going to happen, and people debating what they think is going to happen. So how have you managed to pull that off, where you've really drawn people into it? Seems to have almost taken over their own lives in a small part, and they've really invested in it.
I think to build on what Shib was saying, is that voyeurism. I think our mobile phones are our most personal device, right? So it's if you were to go through anyone's phone, you get to find out their relationships, what they do, the type of person they are, and also their deepest, darkest secrets. We tell so much of our lives and information over messages, and we just never expect anyone else to read them. So it's actually quite a scary thought of having someone else go through it. But on the flip side of that, it's also really interesting to read other people's lives through their phones and discover all that information. So I think one of the main things we always try and do is create really rich characters that people can really relate to. So if it is relationship issues or kind of situations that you might find yourself in, horror stories we've done before where people get stalkers after going viral online, that could happen to anybody. And I think it's those kind of situations that feel so relatable that make the stories feel real. And that's where people get sucked in.
And how do you get started with a product like this? Because it seems to be there's a few different levels to it. There's sort of the creative with creating the characters, and then ultimately the storylines, but also there's a massive tech platform behind this as well. So how do you get started and make sure you've got the right people involved to really pull it off?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what we always try to do at Unrd is hire what we call creative misfits. So people who sit in between, are excited about technology, but they're also excited about storytelling, because ultimately the user experience only works if they both work. So we tend to start from a user base and work backwards from there. So to Adam's point, what is a really realistic way that we could tell a story? And then how can we build the tech to support that? So for example, one of our ideas was, imagine if you could answer calls as well. So then we built the tech where it feels like you're getting someone phoning you, and you answer in the same way as you would your iPhone. You can put it on loudspeaker, you can hold it to your ear. So one kind of feeds the other. So it is quite interesting. I think that's what makes Unrd quite unique, because we've got two sides of the puzzle. You have a lot of companies, the traditional creators, who are very good creatively, but really suffer from a technology point of view. Or you have people who are really good at technology, but they haven't quite nailed how to tell really emotive stories. So that's what we like to think we sit really nicely at that cross section.
And we've not seen too many or any products that that are like this. So I suppose on your parts as co-founders, there's a lot of sort of selling the vision, if you like, not just to get people on board as the team, but also to investors. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I think it depends by stage, right? So when we first launched Unrd, we already had some really strong metrics from one of the stories we'd launched. So that really helped. We had really good retention, really good conversion. As we've gone further down the line, it's become much more about how big this can be, right? So how many people will this touch? How many stories can we create? How much revenue can this generate? So it's varied by stage, but I think the thing that binds everyone together is that they see people like Netflix exploring this area, but those companies are so big and these are such a small part of their business, but everyone knows interactivity is going to be the future of how we consume. So that's ultimately what gets investors excited. Like you said, it's that story and vision of a platform that is the future of entertainment. That's what we're trying to build at Unrd.
And you mentioned some of the bigger brands trying to do this themselves. I see you've actually created a partnership with MTV. So how did that come about?
Yeah, that was really exciting. So yeah, like I said, I think a lot of these companies, their legacy is building amazing content. So they have great IP, but they're always looking for new ways to reach their audiences, or sometimes their audiences are moving away from TV and moving to mobile, and they haven't quite cracked it. And that's the challenge that these big brands always come to us with, where they've got an amazing IP that they know that works, and there's a fan base. Is there a new way to reach that audience? And that was the brief with MTV as well. They've got this great new series called Ghosted. Works really well on TV, but they felt actually an interactive format would also be really exciting. That's what we did. But yeah, we're also about to work with one of the biggest British creators as well, on one of their biggest IPs as well, and that's going to launch this summer. So yeah, lots of big companies who want to explore this area and want to see how they can grow with us with this.
And getting those big brands on board gives you real credibility as well, gives yourselves and the platform real credibility. So for other founders out there that are looking to achieve the same sort of thing, what's your advice for them in terms of getting big brands on board?
Yeah, good question. I think first you kind of need to prove your product works, right? So the proof is in the pudding. So I always think show that the product works, get some users on board, get really strong metrics before you approach them, because actually a lot of these companies get pitched a lot, right? Everyone wants to work with them. They get pitched a lot, and also there needs to be a benefit on both sides. So they need to see what the real benefit for them is. So I think if you can prove out your metrics and prove out the users or whoever your end user is really loves this before you go to them, I think that really helps. And then actually the thing that's helped us is just having a great set of people on our cap table who can make really warm introductions. Because as you know, with these businesses, there's so many employees and everyone's kind of looking at the same thing, but you're not really sure who the decision maker is. So getting those intros to the right stakeholder helps as well.
So let's talk about the two of you as co-founders then. So how do you split your roles?
I think there's quite a natural split between us anyway. So I sit more firmly on the creative side, so overseeing all story and IP production, and also kind of invented the initial storytelling format side of it. So that's like really my area, constantly trying to iterate that as well to keep developing it, and working really closely with Shib, who's more on like product and the commercial side, bringing in all the deals that we end up working with. So there is like quite a natural split. But I mean, we started off like we both worked in advertising prior to this. So I was a writer in advertising. Shib was in strategy. But we always used to do creative things together. So we're both naturally creative, and I think there is still like a lot of crossing over. It's not like we stick to our roles. Like Shib will get involved in stories, and I'll have an active roles in which IPs we want to approach and stuff like that. So even though we do have our roles, which we primarily focus on, I think like co-founder kind of sums up our roles a lot better, because we work closely every single day and probably speak to each other more than our other halves, even during lockdown. So yeah.
Perfect. And I'm guessing with the team growing and bringing investment on and setting up new partnerships, that your day-to-day roles have evolved a fair bit over time as well. So what's that evolution been like?
Yeah, I think it's like what Adam touched on. Like you go from being like a heavy generalist at the start. Like you've got to be able to do everything. So, and a lot of things you're doing for the first time. So I'd never raised funding before we did this. We'd never built a product at this scale before we did this. So you have to basically know every job role and how to do it. And then what we've started to do is bring in people who are better than us, specific functions. That's always a test. So it's like, if we're going to bring in someone who's going to be a product manager, I want to know that he's or she is 10x better than me at doing that role. Similarly with Adam, if he's going to bring in a production manager, they need to be 10x better than Adam. Because ultimately, as founders, the thing that we always try to stick to is you want to get as much stuff off your plate to good people who you can then coach to help grow. Because ultimately, you can't grow the business just as two to the scale it needs to be. But you still want to be involved in the stuff that you enjoy, right? And have an active hand in that. So that's what I'd say. I think we've had to become from like really broad generalists to more like daily coaches on specific functions. So if you want to add to Adam.
Yeah, I think it's taken us some time to get there because I think,
yeah,
like Shib's point, when you very first start off, like it was literally just the two of us for probably about what six months to a year when we were just focusing on like the first initial story. And at that point, you literally are doing everything. So you're also like the accountant. I was like editing, directing, writing. We were driving actors over London and stuff like that. So it's like we're also like runners and stuff. And we were doing so many different roles that actually, when you do start hiring more people, you kind of have to like learn to let them go. And I think for any founder, that does take time. But yeah, it's all about finding the right people and bringing in people who you trust. And like Shib said, not being afraid to hire people who are better than you, because ultimately that is the goal. The company needs to run without just you two there. So that's our role as founders, basically, to build this company and hire those people to make it run.
Absolutely. So what's next then for the business over the next sort of year or so?
Yeah, so where we are now is we're creeping in and around profitability on marketing. So every £1 we spend, we make over £1, which is great position to be in. So we're looking to raise in the next few months. And that's one, to supercharge growth so we can spend a lot more aggressively on marketing. Is to bring in a few more deals. And then ultimately our strategy is long-term, how do we open this platform up to other creators? So as you were saying at the start, there's so much creative potential for this. Imagine if anyone in the world could create these stories using our technology. So we'll always be, I guess, the guardians and kind of the mothership, but we'd love people all over the world to be able to create these stories themselves. So that's where we're heading towards over the next few years.
It sounds like, again, with your background as well, that marketing's a big part of this and a big part of the strategy. So you mentioned that you're around profitability now with the marketing spend. So with your background, give me a bit of an idea of what that journey looks like when you first start your marketing spend to actually getting it to a point where it is profitable.
It's in short, it's been like super painful. So we've pivoted on our business model like 3 times now. So we started off as like a very simple paid story that you read model. Then we went to subscription, which was working well, but then there was a lot of changes and the margins massively shrank. And over the last 9 months, we've been working towards more of a gaming model. So you buy coins, you spend coins, you watch ads. So it's been very iterative to get there. And I think the thing that people often don't realize is like the amount of time and effort you put into building your product. You have to put that much time and effort into your marketing as well. So finding out the right channel, the right user, the right creative message takes a lot of iteration, and almost as it's all. I think it feels more painful doing the marketing side because you kind of see the pounds and the pennies going into your account, rather than when you're building a product, you're paying people salaries. It's kind of like at arm's length, right? You've got this person who's doing work. Whereas when you're spending on Facebook, you're like, okay, I'm going to spend £1,000. If it doesn't work, you just lost £1,000, right? So it feels a bit more emotional. So yeah, for us, it's been quite a journey to get there. And I think the key thing for us has been like, we've made a lot of changes and not been too precious about what we change as well. Getting there. And like, I guess, like you said as well, it's quite a different skill, like having someone who can run growth marketing or wherever marketing plan you're going to do, bringing on those kinds of people as well is an interesting challenge.
And in the lead up then to your next round of raising funds, what are the things you feel you've got to have in line to get to that point?
I think like I won't claim it as mine. I read a really good quote once on Twitter, which was like, fundraising is stories and spreadsheets, right? And as you go further down the funnel, the importance of the two kind of switches. So early stage, 80% story, 20% spreadsheet. People want to know your logic and how it's going to grow. As you go the other way, starts to go the other way, right? People still want the story, but they want to know the business fundamentally works. So with us, we're at that stage where I think it's kind of 50-50. Like people want to know there's a big vision and what we're building towards, but the metrics need to work. So where we are at now is we want to be able to show that we can grow profitably from a marketing spend point of view. We know how we're going to spend money to grow the business from a hiring point of view. And then also we have an ambitious vision that can get us to $1 billion runway. Those are the three things that we're working towards effectively for this next round. Yeah.
Perfect. And for those listening then, where can they find out more about both yourselves and Unrd?
Best place is unrd.co. That's our website. And then, yeah, we're both on LinkedIn, Twitter, the usual places. Probably less active on Twitter these days, but yeah, we're on.